Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the Cutlass rework that is ongoing, and we're going to include some of the information that we got from the latest Around the Verse, as well as some previous images and information that we've got. Now, if you haven't seen the ATV, I would suggest you taking a look if you get the time, because the piece on the Cutlass was actually really cool. It was kind of partially an expose, it was partially an informational based on the developers, but I thought it was really well done, and it was a cool piece. But let's get to the changes of the ship, and boy, the Cutlass is looking mean, like it should be. The original Cutlass was sold as an aggressive ship, focused on maneuverability and firepower, with an ability to haul cargo and dogfight. But as the ship was being developed, it moved further and further away from their intended design, and they felt they needed to make some changes to get it back to where it should have been all along. Now, part of what happened was they split off some of that functionality, and we saw that with the introduction of the Buccaneer. So we needed that raiding ship capable of dealing the damage and carrying the goods. The good news, though, is with them trying to get away from some of what the Buccaneer became on the Cutlass, that gave them the freedom to make changes that were needed to give it the capability to be the backbone of a militia or defense or a piracy group, one of those types of ships in a convoy. Now, there have been multiple forum threads and community opportunities to provide feedback on the Cutlass, and we know that we just provided tons of it. It was probably one of the most popular threads on the RSI forums. And we know a lot of what that was, but one of the most common complaints about the original Cutlass was surrounding the ergonomics of the ship. Players felt like it was hard to get in and out of the cockpit, and when the co-pilot was in the back seat, the front pilot was kind of stuck up there and wasn't always necessarily able to get out. And the way that they changed this design was to redesign the cockpit utilizing elevator seats that basically allow you to enter from either the left or right side, and then once you're in, it then elevates you up to have better visibility. It's also now having stadium seating, that kind of style, so your co-pilot is actually seated higher and gets better visibility to your surroundings instead of looking at the back of your head in the pilot seat. The other benefit here is that you can mount and dismount from the seats faster than before, and you don't have issues with the two pilots trying to do the same thing at the same time anymore. And that's an important change for a ship that has no ejection seats, because you're going to want to be able to bail out if you have to. Now, the interior of the ship's also been adjusted, and if you remember before, the ship had an airlock behind the pilot seat, then the living quarters, cargo area, the ramp, basically everything else was out in the open in the belly of the ship. That made it problematic regarding things like airlocks and bringing in your cargo. Basically, anybody inside your ship would need to have a hazmat suit on or a space suit on if they didn't want to die from this vacuum of space. So we got a redesign, and I really like the look, which is to have the pilot's area and the living area all in one airlocked area that's now a little bit more spacious and gives you more options to put in like equipments and weapon racks and things like that. You then have two doors on the backside of that area. One goes to the turret, that also has an airlock there, and the other one goes to the cargo area, which makes a lot more sense. Now, in that cargo area, you now have sliding side doors that basically allow you to open it, which makes things like bringing in cargo on board a hell of a lot easier. Kind of think about like the Caterpillar and how that works. So that the loading cargo is a lot easier, or for facilitating boarding actions, you just pull up next to a ship, open the door, your Marines can get out, and boom, it's all of a sudden a lot faster, a lot smoother, it's a lot easier on the pilot, as opposed to having to balance people that are dropping out the back of the ship or even through the bottom airlock that was in place before. Now, the Cutlass grew by quite a bit, but I'm curious about the size of the cargo area compared to where it is today. So it might end up being bigger, smaller, about the same, we don't really know. Now, we do know that the access to that area is going to be better regardless, so that's a very real positive, but the size and capacity is something we're going to need to keep an eye on. We do know that the area is big enough to fit a Dragonfly, and the ramp on the back looks wider than it was before, and the Dragonfly should easily be able to fit out that area. Now, as far as weaponry on this ship, it's improved pretty drastically on the ship. It gets more missiles now, and they're actually pulled off of belly pylons, and they're now tucked into the hold towards the rear of the ship. The weapon placement changed as well, and where before it had 2 on the turret, 2 on the wings, 1 on the nose, now the layout is 2 on the turret, 2 on the wings, 2 on the shoulders behind the cockpit. Now, from the video, it looked like it was carrying Panthers on the turret, gimbaled Badgers on the shoulders, and maybe Sucker Punches on the wings. But that being said, we've seen in other documentation that it can equip up to 4 fixed size 3 weapons for the pilot and 2 more size 3s on the turret, which makes it some pretty impressive firepower on the ship. So I'm not necessarily looking at the video and saying this is what the end result's going to be. I think we're going to go with that, 4 by size 3, and actually 6 by size 3 if you count the turret. I think that's what we're going to get. But I think what that does is, when you consider that this ship now has more armor and durability than it did before, it's now filling the role of a decent contender for a cheap gunboat option. Now, that, I think, also fits into the reason why it's been so ideal for, militia and piracy groups in the lore. As far as balance is concerned, they state in the video that it's a very potent threat for mid-sized ships and up. So what that means is, and I made that very deliberate, is that we're going to see the agility being decreased based on the increased size and weight, not to mention that that function became the Buccaneer, so it doesn't sound like you're going to want to necessarily pick fights with fighters. Now, you're probably going to be wanting to target things like freelancers and up, and that makes sense anyways, because fighters aren't going to be carrying the cargo that you want as a pirate. Now, of course, pilot skill is going to make all the difference, but the ship is targeting those mid-sized ships, and it tries to help you, basically haul cargo, conduct piracy, and of course, destroy other ships if you need to. Now, it's worth noting that with an increase in firepower, durability, size, the overall look is of higher quality now, I would not be surprised at all if this ship went up in price. Now, I'm hoping it's not by too much, maybe by just like $10 to let you CCU between the Freelancer and the Cutlass for a kind of a free cross chassis, but I wouldn't be shocked to see this end up in the $150 price tag range anyways. So if you have the credits and you have any interest in this ship, I would go ahead and get yourself a CCU now and just sit on it until you know for sure. But we know CIG, we've seen this happen. Don't be shocked if you see a price increase. So I'm personally really looking forward to this ship. They're doing really awesome things with it. Once we get more information or an ability to test this in the engine, I'm going to be covering it like you wouldn't believe. So please let me know if you have questions. Stay tuned for more coming your way soon, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.